Well, hi, friends, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jessa, and it is very nice to see you. Today, I am here to react to all 8 endings of the Silent Hill 2 remake. I just completed my game literally last night, and I was blown away, yet also rather unsatisfied by the ending I got. I ended up with the Leave ending, and I know and I love and appreciate this about the game. A lot is left up to interpretation with how vague it is. Very clearly left up for the viewers to kind of interpret what has happened themselves and write their own story and form their own relationships to these characters like James. So, after having finished it, I went to my Google Docs and started writing out all of my feelings about it. And by the time I stopped, I realized I had ranted for 6 whole pages. So, before I continue ranting my thoughts, and before I start saying things that make no sense if I learn a little bit more about this game, I figured I should get all of the knowledge I can first, right? Because there's a chance that I'm seeing things completely wrong, and I will have a whole new understanding of them after having seen all the endings and all the different ways that this game could go. So, I am well prepared for this today. I have coffee and water at my side. I am absolutely ready for this. Are you prepared before I get started and hit play? You got something to drink, a snack, something like that? Maybe a blanket so you can get comfortable? If you are as ready as I am, let's get to watching these 8 endings, shall we? I am using a video on the channel Help Me Leon, which is very funny because now I'm also playing Resident Evil 4, so I now understand the reference. Haha. So shout out to the YouTube channel Help Me Leon. Let's just get to it, shall we? Of course, we've got to do the intro first. Intro? The beginning of the boss fight. Makes sense.
Mary? I have missed you so much.
I've missed you too. We can finally be together. Forever.
I don't know how to feel about this still. No matter how much I think about it, I'm still very, very torn up.
No.
James. Honey. What's wrong?
I'm sorry. I know you tried,
James, please.
but she's gone. I know that now,
Stop it.
and I can't just keep pretending.
Shut up! What do you want? Do you even know anymore? I'm yours. I'm here for you. So what if I'm not her? I can give you what she never could. I can be better than her. What else do you want me to be? What else can I be?
She's not real.
I
It's so sad.
am so sorry, Maria. I really am. But this has to stop.
James's
It's time to let it go.
feelings towards Mary literally manifested this conscious woman who has just been repeatedly murdered brutally in front of him. And now he rejected her. I feel so bad for her. I really
No.
do.
What?
I won't let you do this to me.
I feel that anger.
I won't let you go.
I do.
I can't!
Ugh, such a creepy transition. Ugh. Alright, is it gonna actually do the entire fight? I really hope not. Okay, good. Because that would be
James.
a lot. Oh. Okay, is this the leave ending that I just got? Okay. So we're starting there. Is that a particularly common ending to get?
Hey, handsome.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. I told you. I wanted the pain to end.
Yeah. You did. But that's not why I did it. The truth is, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way.
Probably the first time he's said it.
I wanted my life back.
I suppose aside from when he said it to Laura.
If that's true, then why do you look so sad?
She's not real. This is just him forgiving himself
Mary.
for having
It's
done this to
okay,
her.
James.
And I got issues with that, honestly.
Here.
What is this?
It's what you've been looking for.
Alright, let's see this all again. I don't necessarily have to rewatch this ending, since I just saw it last night, but I'd like to. I need to take it all in a second time, I think. Well, a third time, technically, because I also watched it back when I was editing. I'm still quite unclear about why this letter would somehow make Laura forgive him. That is not making sense to me. For the life of me. I have been mulling over this game since last night. I barely was able to sleep. I kept thinking about it. I have written out 6 pages of my thoughts and feelings, and I still do not understand why Laura would ever forgive him.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place. Waiting for you to come and see me. But you never do. So, I wait. Wrapped in my cocoon of pain and loneliness. I know, I've done a terrible thing to you. I wish I could change that, but I can't. I feel so pathetic and ugly laying here. Every day I stare up at the cracks in the ceiling, and all I can think about is how unfair it is.
This isn't Mary, though.
The doctor came today.
It's not. It
Told
can't
me I
be.
could go home for a short stay. It's not that I'm getting better. It's just that this could be my last chance.
It can't be really
Even
Mary.
So,
Because
I'm
Mary-
glad to be coming home.
Mary was never able to come back to
I
Silent
missed
Hill.
you so much.
She's not waiting there for him. Not for real. So
But
this letter
I'm
isn't
afraid,
real either, is it?
James. I'm afraid you don't really want me to come home.
He doesn't. He
Every
wants you
time you
gone.
come to see me, I can tell how hard it is on you. I don't know if you hate me or pity me. Maybe I just disgust you.
Maybe all of the above.
I'm so sorry.
Not something you need to apologize for, girl.
When I first learned I was gonna die, I couldn't accept it. I was so angry. I struck out at everyone I loved. Especially you.
Which would have been hard on James. That's
That's
true
why
and
I
valid.
understand if you hate me. But I want you to know, I will always love you. Even though our life together had to end like this, I still wouldn't trade it for the world.
This is what he wants to hear from her, though. This isn't really
Well,
her.
This letter has gone on too long, so I'll say goodbye.
And it's
I told
absolutely...
the nurse to give this to you after I'm gone.
Eh,
Which means that as you're reading this, I'm already dead. But that's okay. I'm not afraid of it anymore. I just hope the pain will end soon. So that you remember me for who I was. And not what the disease made me. I want you to go on. I want you to live. For yourself. And for others. Like you did for me. James. You made me happy.
And he leaves the town, leaving his guilt behind. Even though he kind of shouldn't. Is he entirely valid in how he felt during Mary's illness? He is. Is she also completely valid in how angry she was? Yes! And none of it is an excuse for fucking murder. None of it. Her being angry at you, well, being angry probably just towards the world, and you being so close to her, of course she lashed out at you. That's not a reason to kill somebody. Ever. He had perfectly normal, valid human emotions that he ruined. With his shitty choices. We're gonna do this again every time we have a new ending? Okay.
James.
Okay, let's see what the next one is.
James.
I miss you so much. I tried. I really did, but I can't. Just can't go on without you. I can't forgive myself for what I've done. I know this isn't what you would want. But I guess it doesn't matter anymore. You're not here. Are you?
restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place. Waiting for you to come and see me. But you never do. So, I wait. Wrapped in my cocoon of pain and loneliness. I know, I've done a terrible thing to you. I wish I could change that, but I can't. I feel so pathetic and ugly laying here. Every day I stare up at the cracks in the ceiling, and all I can think about is how unfair it is. The doctor came today. Told me I could go home for a short stay. It's not that I'm getting better. It's just that this could be my last chance. Even so, I'm glad to be coming home. I missed you so much. But I'm afraid, James. I'm afraid you don't really want me to come home. Every time you come to see me, I can tell how hard it is on you. I don't know if you hate me or pity me. Maybe I just disgust you. I'm so sorry. When I first learned I was gonna die, I couldn't accept it. I was so angry. I struck out at everyone I loved. Especially you. And that's why I understand if you hate me. But I want you to know, I will always love you. Even though our life together had to end like this, I still wouldn't trade it for the world. Well, this letter has gone on too long, so I'll say goodbye. I told the nurse to give this to you after I'm gone. Which means that as you're reading this, I'm already dead. But that's okay. I'm not afraid of it anymore. I just hope the pain will end soon. So that you remember me for who I was. And not what the disease made me. I want you to go on. I want you to live. For yourself. And for others. Like you did for me. James. You made me happy.
Oh, no, we're not immediately going into the next one now that I just watched a new ending. Oh, boy. With the context of that ending, and hearing the letter again, I think that that letter was in fact written by Mary. And the reason I thought before that maybe that letter wasn't actually Mary at all, and it was entirely created by James's mind, I think that when she says she's waiting for him in Silent Hill, I don't think she meant literally. I think she meant like in the hospital she's waiting for him all the time, and in her mind she's always going back there because it was a beautiful place. She was happy there. Ooh, now I'm getting all sad. Uh-oh, let's not do that. I definitely found that to be much more satisfying. It brought back both the water imagery and the square imagery, and it felt more real. It felt more appropriate. Because the idea of this fake Mary giving him this fake forgiveness that he just wants to be forgiven so he can move the fuck on. If all we were talking about was him needing to be forgiven, him needing to forgive himself for hating her, for resenting her, during her illness. That would be its own fucking thing. That would be a whole other fucking story. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about her murder. He murdered a vulnerable, innocent, defenseless person who adored him and wanted him to be happy. I'm going to have a lot more to say when I finish this video with my long ranting analysis. But until then, let's keep watching the rest of these endings, huh? I already can see that this one is a little different. It's starting out a little different. In the first one, Mary was standing at the window, and here I see she's sitting in the bed. I also see that it's named Maria. This one is the Maria ending. What was this one called? In Water ending. Okay, so we've got Leave, In Water, and Maria. Okay, let's give Maria a watch then, shall we?
Mary?
James. I've been waiting. It's been so long. Didn't you want to see me?
Yes. More than anything. You're all I ever wanted.
That's not true. Is it?
Mary?
You killed me, James.
Yes. I did. I couldn't bear to see you suffer.
It's not what you said in the other
Don't
ending.
make excuses. I know how you saw me, how you felt.
Of course she knows how you felt.
You really
She's
hated
not
me.
even real. She's a reflection of him.
Didn't you?
You can't lie to her when
It's
she's
true,
part of
I
you.
may have had some of those feelings. It was a long 3 years. I was so tired.
I guess I understand. I know I was a burden. You wanted a long, happy life. Something I couldn't give. Can she?
Mary, please, if I could...
No, James. Those were the last precious moments I had. How could I ever forgive you?
Oh, I found that very jarring. Wow.
James.
is this?
Is what you've been looking for.
Let's go.
Where the game began.
Better do something about that cough.
Whoa. Whoa. Okay, that one is gonna need some serious processing. So, Maria may not be real, but he was able to kind of ignore that and just have his little perfect version of his wife as a hallucination with him forever? What is he gonna do? Bring her out of Silent Hill? Can she exist outside of Silent Hill? If she's just kind of a reflection of the way he wishes that Mary was? And it's interesting that she's also coughing. Better do something about that cough. What are you gonna do? Kill her too? Jesus fucking Christ. Why is she sick too? I'm gonna need to contemplate that one. Okay, let's watch the next one, shall we?
James. What's wrong? Aren't you happy to see me?
I'm sorry. I know what you are.
What does it even matter? I am here for you.
Whoa, what's happening? This is wild.
She's gone. And she's not coming back.
There's a way. I can still bring her back.
What? No, that's not true.
But before I do, I need to kill that part of me that still clings to you.
Who the hell do you think you are?
Clings to you, meaning...
You don't get say in this. Not anymore. Like it or not, I am here now. And I won't let it end like this.
Meaning he needs to let go of his idealized version of his wife, the version that he wishes she was, the version of her that he mourns because he never got to have her that way. I don't know. Interesting. Let's see how this one goes. I think that was a New Game Plus weapon, the chainsaw, right? That was wild to see. And we're back out on the water, just like the in water ending. But clearly different.
Mary. You look so peaceful. Forgive me for waking you. But without you, I just can't go on. This town, Silent Hill. The old gods haven't left this place. And they still grant power to those who venerate them. power to defy even death. Very.
What? Hold on. What? What? Once again, after that ending, I don't really know how to feel. I mean, we've got the water imagery yet again. I also realized that in the in water ending, it seemed like, anyway, it was kind of implied heavily that he drove into the lake to end his own life. But in this one, he instead chooses to go out onto the water in a boat rather than a car. So he stays afloat, but he is a little deluded, I think, if he thinks that he can bring her back after having killed her. But I guess not that deluded, because this is a fantasy world, and he seems to think that it's the old gods. That's so interesting, because I've been feeling like whatever is happening in this town is probably a manifestation of whatever happened with that religious cult that was living underground in this crazy town. Is there a chance that that religious cult was like summoning gods or praying to certain gods that were able to be summoned into this town and possess it? Are there more than one? He said old gods. And are there more places like this in the world? Isn't that kind of the premise of Silent Hill F that's coming out pretty soon? Oh, I can't wait for that. That's going to be fun to find out. I will be playing that one too, by the way, so you can look forward to that. I know I'm looking forward to that. But why on the lake? Is the power coming from the lake itself? How very Alan Wake of them. I don't even know, but let's watch the next one, shall we? Apparently this one is called Dog. All right. Show me the dog. What is this? This isn't the ending that I know. What's the dog key? Are these joke endings? This looks like a joke ending. What's going on? What is going on? Oh no! What an odd transition from all this pain to... What is happening? We're not even speaking English now. What's going on? What's happening?
To nie może być prawda.
What is happening? What the fuck am I watching? Oh. That's so cute, but I'm so confused. I am so confused. I see this next one. It's called UFO. What's the one after that called? Bliss? Okay, and still. So there's a few more left. Are these joke endings? How do these come about? How do you get a funny ending like that? Where does the dog even fit in? I'm clearly missing something, and I can't wait for someone to tell me what that's about in the comments. I'm gonna cry. Oh my god, that was hilarious. Okay, you ready for UFOs? Is he gonna get abducted by aliens as the ending? That would be silly. I like the idea, but it would be very silly. Oh, some of these are definitely like funny items. I see the dog key again. What the fuck is with the dog key? James, are you trying to summon aliens right now? Is that what you're doing? Listen, we all know that aliens are real, but come on. Aliens exist. This is so bizarre. What is happening? Is that like his old model from the original game? Space James, I'm the real you. No, it can't be. It's true, you've been alone this whole time. Oh, I'm sorry, a clone this whole time. But now it's time to come home, says Space James. No! Arrgh! Finally, all is as it should be. Finally, we can be together. What the fuck? Oh my god. Mary. Finn. Oh my god, how absolutely bizarre. That was absolutely fucking bizarre. All right, let's do the next one. Is this also going to be a funny one? Jeez Louise, this is nuts. Oh gosh, now what?
Are you taping again? Come on. I don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so peaceful. You know what I heard? This whole area used to be a sacred place. I think I can see why. It's too bad we have to leave. Promise you'll take me again, James.
I promise.
Come on, we need to finish packing. James, honey, did something happen?
Oh, no, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Huh. That it? That's the Bliss ending? How bizarre. Or maybe not. Wait. This is a still ending. Okay, so that was the Bliss ending.
I tried. I really did, but I can't go on without you. I can't forgive myself for what I've done.
I know. What's wrong, honey?
I miss you so much. I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
It's okay.
Will you wait for me?
James. I've always been waiting for you.
Ugh. Oh boy. Okay. Uh okay. So that one really got me. I think it was something about the way that that one was shot. In particular, the angles that made me really feel the absence of someone, the way that there was someone kind of, obviously Mary, off screen. You hear her voice, you kind of see little parts of her, and she touched his face, and wow, that animation. I really felt that feeling where you know you'll never feel someone's touch ever again. That's really intense. His face really said it all. And then it seems like it still ended with him ending his own life, which feels like the right ending, which is horrible to say, isn't it? Because I do not ever want to advocate, ever, for taking your own life. But in terms of a story, in terms of storytelling, it is a satisfying ending. It is an ending that feels appropriate for the horribleness of what has occurred, of what James has done, of what he's going through and has been through, and how much he's been beating himself up and been being punished and haunted by his guilt. Oh my god. I liked that one a lot for some fucking reason. I really liked that one a lot. Although liked does feel like kind of a silly way to put it, doesn't it? And before that was, what was it called? What was that other one called? Bliss? What was that about? Was he just imagining a world where he never killed her at all and that's it? Goodbye. He's done. That's it. How bizarre. Well, it was quite interesting that Help Me Leon decided to break up how much pain was in this 36-minute video with the dog ending and the UFO ending. What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? Certainly a way to keep the mood light, huh? Well, with that all said, let's transition to me doing a super rant, shall we? Today, I have a little bit of a different one for you, don't I? Today is actually going to be a retrospective video about all of my final thoughts, opinions, and analyses of the Silent Hill 2 remake. So, obviously, please be aware that this is going to be chock full of spoilers. If you haven't played the game, or you haven't watched a playthrough of it, like the one I just finished, for instance, which I will link below, then what the heck are you doing here? Now that that obviousness is out of the way, let's get into this, shall we? So, now that I have finally watched all 8 endings, and slept on it, and did some processing, I think I finally managed to get a hang of all my thoughts and all these new revelations about the game, and a lot of the loose ends are finally starting to come together for me. Seeing all of the other endings definitely also altered my perspective a bit and filled in a few blanks. It has become very clear to me how deliberately semi-ambiguous a lot of these endings are. I wonder if a big part of that is because James's memory is hazy. Whether that's specifically because he's dissociating from his trauma or because the town is actually warping his mind, I don't know, but so much is up for interpretation. And I'm sure many players have very different views on this story than I do, and that's perfectly fine. I think also a big thing to remember is that this game is really ultimately about grief of a loved one, someone you love very much, and we all handle that, approach that, and heal from that very differently in real life. So it's okay. That is ultimately the beauty of art, isn't it? That its meaning ultimately exists in the eye of the beholder. Kind of like the town of Silent Hill itself, don't you think? So if you disagree with any of my points that I am about to make, that's okay. Let's just remember to agree to disagree about these very personal interpretations of something that is deliberately abstract and intended for personal interpretation. So let's keep that in mind. Keep things kind, understanding, and respectful in the comments. Now, I do also apologize if my thoughts are kind of all over the place. I really did try to organize them in a way that was at least somewhat comprehensible, but I can't promise anything. So to start, yes, I have finally pulled myself out of that hopeful denial that I was holding on to until the very ending of the game, that maybe, just maybe, James hadn't killed her with his own 2 hands. But yeah, he definitely did. He definitely did. It seems like he killed her while she just lay in bed and smothered her with a pillow. Though it is interesting to me that there's so much ambiguity surrounding the actual murder when it comes to what was shown on tape. It only really makes it clear that she's lying down and that he was looming over her with his hands out, like the monster that he is. I understand why there's such a divide about how people feel towards James, but yeah, that's where I stand on it. I feel for him. I genuinely do. I feel for and empathize with the immense amount of pain that he's been in. His grief, his guilt, his desire for death. But yes, I also still find him to be a monster. And the thing is, so does he. Hence the immensity of his guilt. Now, reading over some comments that I've gotten on my previous Silent Hill videos, and also discussing it a little bit with my sister, who's a big Silent Hill fan, I've had the timeline of the story helpfully clarified for me. It turns out that James actually came to Silent Hill with Mary's body, having pretty much just killed her shortly before the story began, either by days or even hours. After being diagnosed as terminal 3 years ago and spending some time in the hospital, a long time in the hospital, Mary came home for a brief stay, and that is when James killed her. Put her body in the back seat of his car, covered by a sheet, and decided to drive to Silent Hill, simultaneously fulfilling the promise that he made to bring her back there, and also with the intention of ending his own life there. As the game begins, he is staring down at his hands in cold shock, right? And then he goes on to stare meaningfully out at the lake. And knowing all of this now and having seen all of those endings, that all makes a lot more sense now, doesn't it? But once he's there, in the town itself, I guess that place does what it does. Was he already dissociating by the time that he got there and became affected by the town? Or did the town manipulate his memory? I don't really know about that. And right now, I still don't feel like I know quite enough of the lore of Silent Hill to lean one way or the other on that. So the entire town of Silent Hill is reflecting James's emotions, his fears, his darkness back to him like a mirror. But maybe like a broken mirror, because everything he sees is so twisted. Now, correct me if I am misunderstanding, but pretty much everything in this town, or at least the appearance of everything, changes depending on who's seeing it. With the reflection of that person's unconscious, they end up being punished by their own mind. James is being punished by his own mind, by whatever force in Silent Hill wishes him to face his literal inner demons, manifesting them into being specifically to torment James. Now, I don't know if that happens to literally everyone who sets foot in that town or what, but my mind is actually pretty hung up on the idea that maybe it's not everyone, that maybe it's certain people who have done certain things who end up called to that place, maybe because of some prior emotional attachment to the town. Yeah, that's my current theory. I think that maybe it summons those who have committed murder, or maybe some other specific sinful deeds that the town maybe wants to punish people for. And when we think about Laura, of course, she's an innocent child. So by the logic of my theory, she wouldn't have been called there. She certainly did come to Silent Hill because of Mary, but I personally believe she simply went there of her own volition, seeking comfort and closeness to her lost friend, and honestly, her surrogate mother figure, which is very important, especially because, as far as we know, she's kind of alone, isn't she? We don't know anything about her family. This would mean that she's seeing the town in its real state, how it really looks. But if we remove my theory from the equation and we say that she was called there by the town, maybe because of grief and pain rather than because of any deeds that she's committed, then through her innocent eyes, she would be seeing the town as a beautiful place. I really want to know if the town genuinely warps everybody's image of it, or only wrongdoers, or specific wrongdoers. I don't know. See, this theory about it summoning sinners, okay? I've become pretty convinced that the religious cult that once resided underneath Silent Hill may have manifested this, I don't know if it's a spirit or a curse or what, but the immense amount of pain and trauma that occurred under the town because of this cult surely has something to do with why the town seemingly tries to punish perceived sinners, or maybe specifically murderers. So at the time of this game, the town has summoned 3 murderers that we know of, forcing them all to relive their trauma and their crimes, to become immersed in their own pain, tormented by their guilt. And doesn't that sound like a punishment for the sinful, if ever there was one, huh? Those 3 killers who are trapped here are all so different in terms of their motives and the justifiability of their murders. 3 tiers of murder, I suppose? And we actually learn about those 3 murders in order, from most justified to least justified, at least in my mind. Which is funny because there is so much scale imagery in this game too. I suppose as James continuously is weighing his own justifications for what he has done. It's just so tragic that this town seems to punish indiscriminately. When I think about Angela, my heart just hurts. She killed her father, who had been sexually abusing her for a very long time. Anyone who could do that to anyone else, but especially their own child, deserves whatever horrible fate finds them. I said what I said, and I'm not taking it back. Angela doesn't deserve to be tortured by this. I don't think so at all. After the lifetime of torture that she's already lived under the thumb of a man who's more monster than man, really. Whether she was viewing him as the abstract daddy that James was seeing, or as her actual father, it doesn't even matter because he was a literal monster either way. And that's one of those rare times when a murder kind of is the fault of the victim. Because can one really be called a victim if he victimizes someone else so horrifically for so long until they finally snap and force him to face the consequences of his own actions? I don't know. I'm just saying. As for Eddie, he murdered someone who had genuinely wronged him, but that's not necessarily justified. Bullies deserve to be told off, deserve to be maybe cussed at, or maybe even a slap to the face. Not advocating violence in any way, by the way. But ultimately, what they really need is to grow as a person, not necessarily to be murdered. And this is coming from someone who was badly bullied growing up. So then, of course, there's James. James, who murdered his vulnerable, terminally ill wife as she lay in bed, weak, and crying out his name. That is, if you take the end of that boss fight to be a twisted reflection of the actual murder, as I do. No matter how you spin their situation, Mary did not drive him to kill her. At no point did she become a perpetrator, a villain, a monster, in any way, shape, or form. No matter how James ended up feeling about her, he could view her as a monster all he wanted. You know, he could have viewed her that way for her anger, her instability, her ugliness, her uselessness, perceived by him, of course. Whatever he wants. Sure, he could view her however he wants, but that doesn't make it true, and that doesn't make her deserve death. It is true for him, sure, and that I can appreciate. But why did he do this? Because he hated her. He hated her. He hated that his life had changed, and he blamed her for that. He blamed her for his own perception of what she had become and what she represented for him, which was an obstacle. Not only was she an obstacle to him living the way that he wanted to, but her being sick also forced his perspective towards her to shift away from what he was used to with women in general, from this objectifying, sexualizing, possessive way that he always saw her, you know, my Mary, I'm just saying. And with such a disturbing attitude towards women, this shift would have completely rocked his world. He couldn't see her as a fun, sexual being anymore, even though that was her purpose to him. So his resentment for her just grew. It grew and grew and grew until it became a monster that he couldn't even control. He just kind of let go of the wheel, so to speak. He wanted her out of the way, and that is by his own admission, his own words. He hated her. He did not kill her to end her suffering. He killed her to end his own suffering. Now, the thing about hatred that I feel is really important to mention while I'm on this rant is that hatred is really a hair's width away from love, isn't it? It's a deeply intense emotion, and it's one that really can't exist without strong feeling existing there in the first place. You can't be indifferent to something and hate it at the same time. Hatred inherently makes it no longer indifference. Hating her does not negate his simultaneous love for her. It really doesn't. He loves her, and I will not deny that. He loves her so deeply that the addition of resentment in there was able to overflow his capacity to hold emotions so much that it spiraled out of control into hatred that ultimately consumed him. To hate her so much, to get to this point, he had to have loved her an incredible amount first. And that is not to imply in any way that love can lead to murder. It can't. Honestly, I believe that love can just easily overwhelm, and as love overwhelms alongside other emotions, things can get really out of control really, really fast. And that fine line between love and hate can become extremely blurry and easy to roll right past, certainly for someone like James, who represses everything. Toxic love is still love. Love can exist in so many forms. And it's so important to remember that love and hatred can and do often live in the same place, in the same context. But obviously, that isn't healthy. And the way to avoid that is communicating and things like therapy and finding actual coping mechanisms when things like resentment pop up so that you can prevent it getting out of control. He spent the duration of her illness sexualizing the nurses around her and stewing in his own resentment toward his wife and towards women in general. How dare women not be what I expect them to be all the time? So he killed her. But can you imagine Mary's final thoughts? Holy shit. Being killed by someone that she loved so much, someone that she trusted to take care of her until her dying day? Till death do them part? Something else very clear about James to me, anyway, is that he's deeply repressed. He suppresses all of his emotions. He barely smiles, he barely laughs. Even Mary told this to Laura while they were in the hospital together. She put it in there in that letter to her. He behaves meekly, he's soft-spoken. The things that he says really indicate that he's rather anti-sex, that he would never hurt a woman, he would never hurt anyone, you know? But despite that attitude that he gives off, his perception of sexuality and women is graphically reflected to us, the viewer, by the way he's viewing the world around him, the world that we see walking through Silent Hill. His resentment towards an objectification of women is repeatedly embodied in the monsters throughout Silent Hill. Monsters that the others can't even see. They are manifested from his unconscious and are representing things that he has suppressed so vehemently that he can't accept them. Suppression seems to be his primary coping mechanism for, like, everything. His timeline of events is so skewed because he has suppressed that any of this has even happened. He has dissociated from that fact because it is too painful. He can't. He is denial king of denial. When Mary was diagnosed 3 years ago, she basically died right then and there in his mind. For those 3 years, she was already dead to him. He wasn't kind to her at all during that time. Mary even evidenced this, telling Laura that he's a little surly and he never smiled. He took care of her, but in terms of her being his actual wife, seeing her as his wife, as his partner, as somebody fun and sexual who he can spend his life with, that was over. But once he made his choice, he could not stomach that. He couldn't unkill her, he couldn't change the past, and he certainly couldn't accept that he actually is that kind of person. It goes back to what a repressed individual he's always been. Because, in his mind, he's a gentleman. He could never hurt her or any woman. He couldn't possibly be that kind of monster, could he? I don't necessarily think that he is a straight up liar throughout the game. No. I just think that he was genuinely dissociated from his own memories. And that is what dissociation is for anyway. You know, brains can become badly dissociated for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different ways, but it's ultimately a means of protecting oneself from something that's unbearable, like events or emotions that could break a person to actually be fully present for, like severe trauma. James's broken sense of self, his compartmentalized versions of himself and women, are reflected in the appearance of the buildings. When certain feelings come up, when he's getting too close to the truth, maybe too close to his real memories about Mary's death and the last 3 years, maybe when his feelings of guilt are beginning to bubble to the surface in particular, that's when the structures begin to crumble around him and he ends up hunted, particularly by Pyramid Head. And wow, Pyramid Head. Let's talk about Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head really fascinates me because he definitely represents aspects of James, no question. He's his guilt, his shame, but maybe also his anger and resentment. I don't know. I can obviously see Pyramid Head being James's guilt coming after him when he least expects it, forcing him to either face him and experience the worst, pain, death, or run and continue to suppress everything. And in that final confrontation with Pyramid Head, there's 2 of them. That's what gives me the feeling that maybe it is more than just guilt and shame that Pyramid Head represents. That could easily be, you know, guilt times 2, because now he has killed 2 people, both Mary and Eddie. But could one of those be guilt for destroying everything good in his life, of course? And could the other maybe be relief? Is it possible? Is there a chance that Pyramid Head is, or these 2 Pyramid Heads, I guess, are embodying the painful duality of emotions, both negative and positive, that occur in the wake of loss? Could James's positive emotions, like relief, add to this kind of acceptance of his own ugly choices? I don't know. I am just so hung up on this image of the 2 of them standing there, impaled through their faceless heads. Heavy, heavy heads, by the way. Each holding an egg. What the heck? Eggs obviously have plenty of symbolism all on their own. Big products of birds, and birds being such a symbol of freedom, eggs being often a symbol of birth or rebirth or new beginnings, things like that. But the egg thing mostly just brings me back to the bird imagery everywhere. There's just wing imagery frickin' everywhere in this game. The pigeon and the swan representing a kind of gross dichotomy that could be a lot of different things. I think it reflects its 2 sides of himself, his opposing emotions about Mary's death, the guilt and the relief, as well as the opposing ways in which he views women and femininity, innocent and immoral, with like no in between. One egg was pristine and red, and the other was sort of red and speckled. And the game kind of fools you with that one deliberately, I think. Very recently, the game had been showing us images of, you know, shiny red apple and a rotten apple and apple cores, and there was that message on the mirror and the Snow White figurine and everything. It really sort of hammered home the image of these 2 states of an apple. So before you actually look at those items up close, it is really reasonable to think, oh, those are apples. And it forces you momentarily to face those 2 opposing views. But then you look closer, and bam. They're eggs. They're actually the same thing. Neither one is rotten at all. You thought that one was beautiful and one was ugly? Nope. Turns out they are exactly the same on the inside. Neither is rotten. They are only different in a superficial way on the outside, the shell. Both negative and positive emotions have to be allowed the space to exist in order to grieve properly. And only with both eggs can you open the door that leads out of the Pyramid Head boss arena, which allows James kind of very literal freedom from his guilt or his shame. It's also really interesting that Pyramid Head actually killed Maria more than once in front of James, as though to suggest that guilt will only destroy the memory of the one you love. It'll only weigh you down, kind of like Pyramid Head's weapon and his head. And you won't be able to properly grieve unless you can reconcile those two conflicting feelings. Of course, this conversation really only makes sense to a point, because in the case of literal murder, this case, James's fucking case, he destroyed the memory of his wife. Not his guilt. No, he defiled that memory all on his own because he couldn't just stick to his feelings and decided to actually commit murder in response to those feelings. Had he stuck to those feelings, had he not ended up killing her, I'd be all about his grieving process, his healing, and letting go of guilt for hating her. But James literally killed her. He didn't just hate her or resent her. Oh no, he went ahead and actually decided to end her life, to steal her precious final days from her. I'm suddenly recalling that hotel room full of bird cages again. There was, I think, a phantom bird in there or something. We heard the sounds of birds flapping wings on rattling cages, but there was never anything actually there. And doesn't that very much feel like a symbol of James's imagined feeling of being trapped? Not to say that he didn't feel trapped in a valid way too at some point. I think that feeling trapped after becoming somebody's caregiver when you weren't expecting it and kind of don't want to be a caregiver that's a very natural thing to feel. But he felt trapped, as in he thought he had no other way out. But he did. He did. It is a cage he ultimately created for himself. A cage that we, the player, are also forced into feeling ourselves during that final sequence of the boss fight with Mary, or Maria. The gameplay literally forces us to feel it. No windows, no doors, no escape from that room, no way out. Nothing else is in that room. The only thing there is Mary, lying helpless on a bed, calling his name. And the only way out for us, the player, the only way out of that painful, sad situation, the only way to end that scene and actually get on with the end of the game is to kill her. Now, I do want to reiterate how valid the way that James was feeling is. There is so much validity to all of James's suffering, or there was at some point before he fucking killed her. I am fully aware there is nothing as painful as watching someone you love die. Not to get too personal or anything here, but I have lived through the experience of losing someone who was terminally ill, and ours was a complex relationship, so I actually had a lot of negative feelings towards that person by the time they had passed away. And after they were gone, for a really long time, I was racked with guilt for harboring so much negativity towards somebody who was at the end of their life. So I know that feeling. I know how overwhelming it can be. I empathize with what a detriment it can be to the grieving process. I also want to add that in addition to being able to empathize with the complicated nature of grief sometimes, I also want to put out there that in my field as an art therapist, I have worked with a lot of different people, including people who have been convicted of felonies like murder. So you can make of that what you will, but I'm mostly just saying that to give a little more context to my perspective in case you're curious about where I'm coming from. There really is something very real and human about feeling resentment or any kind of negative emotion towards someone you love who is dying. And especially in a situation like James's, in which suddenly his entire life is spun off course. He suddenly becomes a caregiver for someone who used to be something very different to him. Suddenly he is seeing his beautiful, sweet wife as almost like a shell of herself. Sick, miserable, in pain, unable to care for herself when she used to be self-sufficient, and angry at her own situation. Understandably so. That would be hard on anyone. The resentment, the anger that could build there would be completely valid, completely human. But what defines a person is the way that they cope with those very normal human feelings. It's not the negative feelings or the dark thoughts, but the way a person copes with those that makes you who you are, the kind of person you are, the behaviors that you choose to carry out in response to your hardest feelings. Side note, I am a fan of some true crime podcasts, right? And I often say about the perpetrators in a lot of those cases that I can empathize with the traumatized child that they were, but not the person they became because of the choices that they made. And that feels like a very relevant attitude here. I can empathize fully with the feelings that he was tormented with, but not James as a whole person. You know, in the past day since I've finished the game, I have seen quite a lot of people already in one day saying that he's not a bad person, he's just a person who made one bad mistake. I'm sorry, but a mistake? Murder is not a fucking mistake. Murder is a choice. And if it's not a choice, it is self-defense. And is it self-defense when that murder victim is lying in a bed, helpless, crying for you? I don't think so. Murder is not a mistake. If he had insulted her in the heat of the moment, maybe, and then immediately took it back, that's a mistake. Murder is not a mistake. It's a choice. Not only did he make an unforgivable choice in response to his feelings, but the world that we, the player, have been wandering around in this whole time has been repeatedly reflecting back to us the ugliness of James's unconscious. So we have been able to see from the get-go the kind of man he really is. He views women in a light that is inherently disturbing and dehumanizing and fucked up, to be honest. He suppresses his sexual feelings towards women so much, in addition to all of his emotions. He actively refuses to feel guilty for any of it. So he runs from it over and over and over again throughout the game. He runs from it through dissociation. He runs from it by repeatedly lying to himself so he doesn't have to feel so bad about what actually happened. He runs from it very literally, too, repeatedly running from monsters, from Pyramid Head. And at the end, he announces to the dual Pyramid Heads that he doesn't need them anymore. That feels to me like a verbal rejection of his guilt, asserting a newfound acceptance of the deed that he committed. His done deed, so to speak, going back to that briefcase passcode that helped us get here. And that begs the question, is he feeling like he no longer needs to be beaten up for what he's done? Both literally and in his own mind? All of the enemies flee from him after this. They aren't simply harmless now. They actively flee or fall down or curl into a ball at the sight of him. Those monsters, having represented his demonization of women, his resentment towards women having autonomy of their own sexuality, bound, writhing in pain, squirming to be free, emitting sounds like an injured or dying animal, to be honest, and sometimes even sounding like a crying baby. Do they suddenly flee because he no longer feels so negatively towards women? I don't really think so. That would be a pretty huge jump in character out of nowhere to suddenly see women differently with no real change. I think they flee because he no longer feels so negatively towards himself. I think they flee because he has accepted the kind of monster that he is. No matter how heavy his guilt may have been, he has let it go. And can you really torment a man with guilt over things that they don't feel guilty about anymore? Not particularly. James has now become the monster. The twisted manifestations of his psyche no longer force him to face his demonic idea of femininity or female sexuality, but instead reflect the power that he feels he has now over the demonic after letting go of his guilt. James still has the option to hurt them. Apparently, a lot of players still do. Maybe out of habit, I don't know. But despite the fact that they're no longer a threat and appear visibly afraid of him, he is fully in control there. It really seems like at that point he's accepted his darkness and his repressed, monstrous nature. He's ready to move the fuck on. Now, the meaning of all of this, of course, is up for interpretation, which I really love and appreciate. I'm sure a lot of people really consider James to be not evil because they understand his pain and conflict, understandably. I get where they're coming from because his pain and his conflict are deeply relatable in a lot of ways, especially if you've ever watched someone you love go through a debilitating illness, or even more so if you've suddenly been thrust into the role of caregiver for someone who used to be self-sufficient in your life. But I just can't bring myself to agree that he's not evil. At the end of the day, he remains a sexist man who allowed a normal human emotion to overtake him as though caught in an uncontrollable wave, and he made a choice that can't be taken back, no matter how bad he fucking feels about it. In many ways, he felt totally justified in that choice. Of course, he has some doubts. That's why we keep seeing the scale imagery everywhere. But he felt justified enough to commit the murder in the first place, and potentially feels justified at the end of all of this enough to let his guilt go and move on. I think a lot of people see his choice as maybe not necessarily justified, but I've seen people describing what happened, the murder, as James having been driven to it, driven to making that choice, forced into a corner, forced to make that choice. The truth is, he made a conscious choice in the heat of his pain. Laura and Mary both confirmed for us that James was not kind to begin with. He treated Mary poorly. And honestly, I am inclined to trust the intuition of an innocent child. In the same way I would probably trust a cat or a dog to know a bad person when they meet one. You know what I mean? While Mary is laying there, dying, he turned his sexual attention to the nurses around her. He was mean to her. He made her feel worthless and ugly, because that is how he saw her at that point. He had already killed her off in his own mind a long time ago. In return, she became angry. Somebody who cries and yells at her husband, probably more than she should, because she is in severe pain. Is yelling healthy? No, but the thing is, even she knew that, immediately apologizing for it and recognizing how angry a person she's become and feeling so bad about that. We heard it all in that monologue as James walked down that hallway at the end of the game. Being angry and resentful towards your own situation and the situation that your husband is also now caught up in doesn't make her any kind of monster or perpetrator or abuser the way that James made her out to be in his head. This woman was dealing with the end of her life fast approaching. The fear of the unknown, the agony of knowing you're leaving someone you love behind, someone who loves you and will be heartbroken. And while she's laying there making excuses for how badly he treats her, look at the way that she described him to Laura in that letter. But does he consider that she doesn't want this for either of them? Does he consider that there are other choices besides killing a woman who gave him her heart and soul, a woman who trusted him to take care of her till her dying day? A woman who is vulnerable, could not defend herself? No, instead he chose to prioritize his own pain over hers, and he killed her. He explicitly killed her, not to end her own pain, but in his own words. This is what I don't understand, is how people, I have been noticing just over the last day, I literally only finished this game a day ago, and I have already seen countless people talking about how he killed her to like spare her pain, and isn't that justified? In his own words, he didn't do it for that reason. He killed her because he wanted her out of the way. And if you start to develop hatred for your partner in a situation like this, that really is pretty normal. But you know what you do? You communicate. You decide if this is really the relationship you want to be. You make the heartbreaking decision to split up and they can find another caregiver. As cruel as that is, it's better than fucking killing them and stealing their last precious days on Earth. He killed her to end his own damn pain. He likely saw her completely justifiable anger at her situation, at their situation, as some kind of sick justification for the choice he made. And to say that he was driven to that choice, forced into that choice, is to place the blame on the woman who was murdered and who was already dying, too. She forced him into it by being sick. She drove him to it by being angry. You think being sick and being angry and not being able to take care of yourself are reasons why you deserve to die? That's a you problem, man. She was angry because she was sick and had a husband who treated her like dirt while she was sick. She was angry, she was dying, and he felt caged by it all, which is understandable. Like I've said repeatedly, but felt is the operative word there. Like I said before, it was a cage of his own making, built by his repression, resentment, and rage. Feelings are valid, but feelings are not facts. It is okay and even healthy to give space to your negative and shameful feelings, but that does not give you any kind of permission base to then murder someone who's completely innocent. There is always another fucking way. As for the ending that I got, there are multiple endings, obviously. We just watched all 8 of them. And they definitely did put some things into perspective. But the one I got, titled Leaving, or Leave, maybe, I don't know. It almost seems like it's supposed to be a happy ending. James appears to find peace and forgiveness. He's let go of his guilt. He finally gets to leave Silent Hill to escort Laura, I don't know, home, back to the hospital, whatever. And I think to some people, that sounds great. That's a happy ending. He's found peace, he's forgiven himself, yada yada. Doesn't that sound like it'd be a happy ending? Well, in my opinion, it is not a happy ending at all. It feels like a happy ending because Mary forgives him, but that wasn't really Mary. He envisioned her the way he wanted to envision her. Weak and sick, but fully accepting or even happy about his decision to kill her. He's not being forgiven by anyone but himself. And to some, that feels like a pretty happy ending because in a normal situation without murder involved, yes, forgiving yourself is vital to healing. But personally, I don't think he deserves forgiveness. Of all the sins to forgive oneself for, selfishly murdering a sick and defenseless loved one isn't really one of them, in my opinion. And I don't particularly want him to just move on with his life at peace with the literal murder he committed. Were he simply punishing himself for resenting her, for hating her while she was dying, this would be a completely different conversation. Heck, it would be a completely different game, wouldn't it? But with what we are given, the endings in which he takes his own life actually do make a lot more sense to me and also make him more of a sympathetic character, which sounds really bizarre to say, I know, but to me it really does. That's not to say that a murderer always deserves to die, not even a little bit. Note how I feel about Angela's situation, in which she felt like there really was no way out. And please note that I also really understand how James got to the point that he did. But the thing is, even at the peak of pain, at the peak of trauma, most individuals do not go on to commit murder because of it. That is a choice that can only be made by people, in my opinion, that can only be made by people who have that capacity in them already, with the only exceptions really being those who are desperate, those who are killing for survival and freedom, like Angela. James was desperate, and I will give him that, but he, unlike Angela, had a way out. And it is his problem that he couldn't see it. He had choices. And not to be crass or anything, but his suffering involving Mary was time limited as it was. And yet he made that choice anyway? That's unforgivable to me. And personally, I think the version of James that ends up with the leave ending is much more irredeemable than the version of him that ends up taking his own life. I just feel that way. One feels like actual guilt and actual love and longing for Mary, while the other feels like disregard for the gravity of his crime. I've learned since finishing the game also that some of the most seemingly random stuff contributes to which ending you actually get. For instance, apparently to achieve the ending that I got, the leave ending, you would have needed to heal often and not protect Maria so much in battle, and also like wander away from her while following her around pretty frequently. Meanwhile, the endings in which James kills himself require you to protect Maria as often as possible and heal infrequently. It's just an example, but that's wild to me. It's almost as though, if we, of course, remove murder from the equation again, so that we're just talking about regular grief and regular guilt, the ending in which he can leave the town and move on involves James prioritizing himself over his imagined fantasy version of his wife. And yes, that is a lovely, healthy message if we were discussing a normal grieving process. And sure, I will also give him this. James is going through real grief. He is going to still have to go through a grieving process, but he committed literal murder. And that removes this story entirely from the realm of normal human grief. Now, to switch gears just a little bit, I want to talk a bit about the repeated water motifs in Silent Hill. The emotional flooding that ultimately led to James's choice has become completely literal in the way that he sees the world around him here. So many of the locations are flooded, water is dripping, structures are water damaged, and if you ask me, it's all symbolic of his emotional flooding. Water in general tends to symbolize a force beyond our control, something that can both destroy as well as give life. Emotions ebb and flow. They come in waves, and when they flood, they can be absolutely destructive. Having now seen the other endings and knowing that James chooses to end his life via drowning, I see now that the presence of water and flooding throughout the game is also a reflection of his suicidal ideation cropping up. I completely understand that. I understand those thoughts. I have been there. I understand how little control a person has over thoughts like that. So the water is a very apt metaphor for it, I think. They bust in when you least expect them. They flood and ravage your stability in the moment that they do. And I'm sure the thought of suicide was rearing its ugly head a lot more than I even realized while playing it, because there was obviously a lot of symbolism I wouldn't have caught without knowing the whole ending. So I would really actually love to replay this game, maybe on New Game Plus, to try and track the progression of James's feelings over the course of the story now that I have more knowledge about it and more context. So if you would be interested in seeing a playthrough like that, please let me know in the comments. On a related note, there is that one ending where James sets out on his little rowboat on a quest to something. What sounds like harness the power of the gods? Big question mark? Or whatever it is that has made Silent Hill what it is. He seems to want to harness it in an attempt to resurrect Mary. Or more specifically, to undo his deed, because honestly, I think it's more about him and his guilt than it ever was about Mary. I don't know how to feel about that particular ending just yet, honestly. I really can't say if that would even be doable in this particular fantasy world, but I don't know, maybe it is. But it mostly just feels to me, though, like James is just falling deeper into denial. Also, having watched that ending back again, I am now also getting the impression that he actually retrieved Mary's body from his car and put it on his rowboat to row out into the middle of the lake with it. The image of him rowing into the fog, looking so small and lost on that vast lake around him, it brings to mind, again, the legend of the Lady of the Light, in which her lover becomes lost on the water in his little boat, searching hopelessly for his lost love because she lost her light. Another motif I want to address is the recurring theme of lost, abandoned, or injured children or babies. Now, I don't know if there's maybe something I'm not aware of yet in terms of the lore of James Silent Hill. I don't know. I have not played the original Silent Hill actually, so there's probably a lot that I'm not aware of still. But with what I do know, I've come to the pretty firm belief that there was either a child lost at some point, like maybe a pregnancy that ended, maybe because of Mary's illness, or perhaps a miscarriage that took place even before then. I don't know. Those are things that would definitely contribute to James's resentment towards her on a very normal human level, and that would surely fuel his incorrect feeling of justification even further. Whether that's true or not, it may simply be a straightforward symbol of just lost innocence. Everything good and innocent in James has been ruined with that one decision. And he may not want to accept that, but he still sees it everywhere he goes. Abandoned baby carriages, ruined children's toys, teddy bears that have been torn or are missing limbs, stuff like that. And we can't forget the baby carriage in the fucking swimming pool. For the life of me, that image just, oh, it's stuck with me. It's haunting. I don't know. I wonder if it's all representative of just a lost future. A future in which he and Mary had a child. A future that will never happen. A child that will never be born. The empty carriage. Stranded in an empty pool. I also want to briefly bring up the symbolism of triangles and pyramid shapes in general, because obviously that is a motif that was repeated endlessly throughout the game. That and squares, but let's start with triangles. Triangles, oddly enough, tend to represent things like balance and harmony, and pyramid shapes tend to symbolize an ascension of some kind, a closeness to the heavens or the afterlife, or to a higher state of consciousness or awareness. It represents a direct pathway or gateway between the earthly and the divine, allowing for ascent through spiritual knowledge and connection. I don't know. But I think if we specifically are talking about Pyramid Head, I feel what's more symbolic than the actual shape of a pyramid is the heavy weight of it and the threatening vibe of having it made of that rusted metal in place of his head. It almost feels a little bit like James's unconscious feels guilt is the only way to stay tied to Mary. Or something like that. I don't know. On the flip side, squares are often a symbol of grounding in reality, which is really funny because there's the save squares, right? In those moments when you save the game, James is canonically staring into that square, a red square. Maria comments on it as though he really is just standing there, kind of dissociating, staring into the distance. I can't help but wonder if he's having moments where maybe he's close to remembering the truth. Anytime Pyramid Head shows up, there's red lights somewhere nearby, lighting the way for the guilt that haunts him, I guess, chasing him through his own crumbling mindset. I don't know. I think the color red in general in this game is a deliberate indicator of James's darker thoughts popping up. It's always after we come across red lighting that Pyramid Head attacks, isn't it? It's like everything in this game is symbolic. It's really incredible. I have been ranting for so long. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. But to sum everything up, I think ultimately this game is an absolutely gorgeous portrait of grief and guilt. It's an excellent example of the fact that video games genuinely are art. More than that, being interactive the way video games are, it starts to verge on becoming art therapy in its own way. I really, really loved this game, and I gotta say, it now occupies a similar niche in my brain storage as Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and that's like art that is speaking to grief specifically, in a way that hits just right, you know what I mean? Leaving a deep impact, and ushering in a sort of strange catharsis that's kind of impossible to describe now that I'm thinking about it, but if you've been touched by grief, and you've felt that, you might know what I mean. This game is just a true work of art. And I think it reminds us of the importance of grieving consciously in a way that prioritizes your healing and you, yourself, without sparking the destruction of those around you. something that James just was not able to do. So that's something to learn from. There is just so much in this game. There is no way I could go over every single point of interest in one video. But if you would like me to go over every point of interest, then you're in luck, because at some point I think I am planning to play again on New Game Plus, and would definitely enjoy filming a particularly yappy and analytic replay for all of you. So if you'd be interested in that, please do let me know in the comments. And similarly, I have a yappy analytic replay of Clair Obscure Expedition 33 planned as well. So if those kind of things interest you at all, maybe consider subscribing. Just saying. I am so grateful to all of you, everyone who has supported and encouraged me through this absolutely wild journey, and especially my beautiful baby sister Christy, whose love for this game ultimately pushed me to finally give it a try, so thank you! I had absolutely no idea what I was in for, but boy am I glad I faced my fear and went for it, because now I have experienced yet another beautiful work of art, and I'm always grateful for that. Anyway, this rant has gone on too long now, so I'll say goodbye. Too soon? Either way, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed our time together, please consider doing that YouTube thing. Liking, commenting, subscribing, whatever you feel like doing really helps me out. I love and appreciate you. Please be kind to yourself. Take care of yourself. If you are grieving, be extra kind to yourself. And stay soft, because the world is definitely hard enough already. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.